All right, good morning. Sorry about that. We're just making sure we get some technical stuff set up real quick this morning. Welcome to session 2 of the Precision Ag session. Today is a little bit different than if you came the other day. The other day we had the Innovations in Industry panel, and I would say we kind of call this one the academic talks, but it's not really. This time we have 3 farmers and 3 academics coming, so there's going to be a higher standard for our academics to not be too academic today. All right, so we're going to set that there. And so before I jump in, and let them start, I'm going to go through. You've all been through. If you've been at the conference up till now, you've been through all this. But my name is Wes Porter. I'm Extension Precision Ag and Irrigation Specialist at University of Georgia. I'm going to be your moderator for this session. So Luan Oliveira, he's Assistant Professor and a Precision Ag Extension Specialist, and he manages the Precision Horticulture Lab at the University of Georgia. Yeah. So with that, Luan, I'll turn it over to you.
Appreciate it, Wes. I'm going to try to beat those guys there, talk louder. Thank you all for coming. As Wes said, my name is Luan Oliveira, Precision Ag Extension Specialist with the Department of Horticulture at UGA. As he said, I run the Precision Hort. Thank you, Wes. Appreciate it. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. I run the Precision Hort Lab. Right now, these are my folks there. As you see, I'm putting their background here. So we're trying to cover a lot of ground on robotics, AI, mechanization for pretty much every crop in Georgia, every high-value crop in Georgia, every specialty crop. So I'm going to start the presentation talking about artificial intelligence, the research we've been done. So this is blueberry with Marcelo, which is here, is a postdoc in my lab. So we've been training models to forecast, to predict blueberry sweetness and quality in general, like sweetness, firmness. So in this video here, you can see we're training a model to detect the berries one by one, and this is using a phone, so that's going to be easier for the grower to download an app, picture that blueberry in the future, and see how sweet that is. Other results we have here, so that's the same result right there. So we could predict in a really well way the blueberry sweetness with more or less 98% accuracy, depending on the model we use. For that data set, right now we're going to try that same model in different data sets as well. And this is onion. So onion, we could predict onion yield with 30 days before harvesting, just using drone images. We took those images every other week during, every other week during 3 months, more or less. And this is what we got. 30 days before harvesting was the best time we could predict onion yield using drones. And as the Precision Ag specialists, we've been doing a lot of spraying drone work. So we're doing some work with that, and here's some results. So firstly, we wanted to know which fungicides we're applying for specialty crops in Georgia. And then these are the top ones according to, I would say, the UGA standards, Dr. Babesh data, what he recommends for application for fungicide programs within the vegetables. And then we found that the outputs, most part of them are 5 gallons per acre. And also most part of them are registered for area application. So we're good on doing spraying drone using those products. And then because of that, we wanted to know how is spraying drone, and that's just a video on pecans, but we did on tomatoes, on cucumbers, on bell peppers, carrots, a variety of crops that we grow here in Georgia. At those 2 outputs, at 5 and 10 gallons per acre. And then this is just, I would say, a ground truth. This is not on the crop. So we were testing this swath of that drone using adjuvants right here and no adjuvants right there, using a P100 Pro drone, 15-gallon tank, those big ones. So if we look at that graph, we have an effective swath, right, from more or less 6 to 16 feet So like 10 feet of effective swath, because if we want like 25, 30% coverage, that's the swath that we have to use actually. So this is just I would say an animation on how the drone would fly. We would have to put it like at a spacing at 7.5 more or less, 7.5 feet in order to have that overlapping that we have on a boom sprayer, for example. Yeah, that's the route right there. And then this is a tomato field. So here you see coverage right there. And then on the other side, you see droplet density. And what all these graphs say is basically is that, hey, the coverage is really low. Those are the tomato beds right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We tested 6 beds. It says 10 gallons per acre is better. At 5 gallon, you can have some coverage right there. But at 10 gallons per acre is better than those 5 gallons on coverage and droplet density. And then we did following the row, and we did against the row, like on the tomato rows. And what we found that is actually following the rows, we had best results on tomatoes. So I have like pretty much like really field time here to talk to you guys. So that's why I only brought a tomato example. But we have this for carrots, cucumbers, squash, bell pepper, all the other crops here that we grow in Georgia. So if you need that data, please send me an email. My contact information is going to be at the end of the presentation. And then robotics as well. So if you think about it, this is what they call robotics landscape in 2024. All the companies that are working with robotics related to agriculture are there inside of that picture, pretty much all of them. And for me, it has been raising a concern, like how fast these things are increasing. So if you see, this is the data from a magazine. They have a catalog, and they found out that the number of harvesting robots on their catalog increased 73% from 2022 to 2023. That's a lot. So how we're going to be able to take decisions on those things if they're increasing a lot and we don't know if they work or not? So in my program, we have been doing some research on those ag bots in the fields. So that's an example of a carrot field. This is a small air blast robot. As you see, this is my controller right there. I can control vertically and horizontally those blasts and also control the outputs. And we wanted to know how far that thing goes, how far that spray goes, that spray pattern goes. And then we put it stakes on the ground with water-sensitive paper cards and let it run. That's how it goes right there. On different angles, of course. So if you see that image in the controller, we tested 130 and 160 degrees. And some results are seen here. The robot goes pretty much all the way to 15 feet. So seven and a half feet on each side. And we tested different outputs, 25 gallons per acre, 75 gallons per acre, and 160. It didn't matter, like that angle that we tested, but the output mattered a lot, like because here's coverage. So we could reach about like 25% coverage on those like 10, 15 feet spacing with the robot. And then we went also ahead and we tried the same thing, but on different heights. So we simulated a tomato spacing, a vineyard spacing, and a blueberry spacing. And some results you can see right here. Robot did not do good in this environment. So only for 6 feet spacing, we saw some coverage. But then when we were evaluating the pattern, we saw that. So that air blast, it moves horizontally. So you see the water pattern, it goes up and down, up and down. And then sometimes it doesn't touch those water-sensitive paper cars that we have in the field. But the same robot, it has a bar attachment. And my video is not playing, of course. So it's like a boom sprayer, but vertical. and that worked really, really good. So you see,
It's sort of playing.
which one was?
The left one, or you know what the right one to play?
This, yeah, like that one right there. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. You see, quick, something's not working. Yeah, Sorry about that, guys. And that one is gonna work, I'm pretty sure. So this is the bar attachment. You see how much coverage I got here? 70%, 75% within that tomato spacing. So that was, I would say, the pretty good result we got for that little robot. And the same one, we can attach a mower on it, so it can mow fields autonomously. We tested the battery autonomy. It runs for about an hour. But the catch here is that those batteries, they last, like, they charge in 10 minutes. So, you know, runs for an hour, charge for 10 minutes. If you have an extra pair, you can just swap it and send that robot in. The issue is that it doesn't work on GPS-denied environments. So if you want to put inside of the country or a blueberry orchard, it's not going to work. So on open fields like that, it worked pretty well. And this is future research. We're currently, pretty sure if you were here on Thursday, you saw some presentation on robotics as well. So Taylor Wetley, he's here from Solinftech. Solinftech was nice enough to bring one of their robots, and right now we are doing the first applications of this platform on vegetables. This is a fully autonomous robot, spot sprayer. And then this example here is in a broccoli field, and we are training the AI right now, so these robots would understand what is a broccoli and what is a weed. First trial we did, we were able to save 59% of chemicals, and the AI was not even like 100% trained yet. And as you can see here, like, we only used 25.7 gallons, applied 100,000 points, and covered 1.32 acres. And at the end, the robot gives you a weed field, a weed map on your field. So we are like really early on this technology right here. Me, Wes, Glenn, we're all working on that. Let me see if this one is going to play. Pretty sure not. So that's the robot right there. We did some work as well to test the application technology. Coverage, you know, like, because it's a new technology, new nozzle tips, so we wanted to know the coverage. Oh yeah, it played. Yeah, that's right there. When it sees the green, it applies on the weed, and then it only is going to apply when it sees another weed again. So that's how it works. It's a green-on-green technology. And coverage was pretty good on the center of the nozzle. I didn't run statistics on this. I just got this data yesterday. But the application of that robot is doing pretty good on droplet density and coverage, not on the overlapping region, but we can work on that on the boom height, of course. And the next one, we're going to be doing some research this year, is the ERA. Robotics also presented here yesterday. We have one at the Vidalia station. Aris Haygood is also going to talk a little bit more about that. Sorry about that. I didn't have my videos, all of them playing, but this is how the ERA works. Is a high precision sprayer. It like this one is pretty impressive. It tells you the difference in between monocoats and dicoats, so you can use different products on the go when you're spraying. There's 158 nozzles there, so every nozzle is independent. It's going to open and close independently. I have some other ongoing precision ag and mechanization projects. So this is a mechanical transplanter. This is not going to play as well as. Yeah, that's a computer, because like all the folders are there. And also like some digital ag platforms evaluation. That's an onion field. And then we flew the drone over, and then we trained the model to count how many onions we have in that field after harvesting. So you see, we zoom in, and then right now I'm going to press a button right there on like plant counts. and the model is gonna give me the estimate on how many onions I have in the field, and what is the average size as well of those onions. So let me, I can go a little bit, yeah, right there. Yeah, that's an estimation. We did the preliminary data collection last year, and we're gonna do that this year again to ground truth. We did same thing for pecans. And the pecan model worked pretty well with like 99% accuracy because we did ground truth that data already. That's gonna be presented in the conference this year. Same thing. And that we can count, measure the width and the area of the canopy and also the height of those trees. I used these models this year as well to count down at blueberry trees after Hurricane Helene. So, after the grower had removed all of the debris from the rows, I went there and I counted every single blueberry bush for him to know like how many of those blueberry bushes he needed to purchase to retransplant. And sorry again about the videos. If you want, I have all of them in my computer so you can see actually what I'm working with. And we have pretty good results from all of these robots, spraying drones, and AI going on. So just catch me out in the end and I'll be here through the whole day. Thank you.
Thanks, Luan. Does anybody have any questions for Luan? So up next, we've got Aries Haygood, and he's president of A&M Farms, and he's going to discuss applications of carbon robotics weeder from Vidalia onion farmers' perspective. So told you we were going to bounce out and back between farmers and academics. So I'm going to stay right, hold on, let me do this. It's wanting me to. So let's, Aries, do you want to?
Yeah, so sorry about the mass technical confusion that I have actually started today. You would think if I go and purchase a machine like this that I would have a PowerPoint presentation when I came to do a speech on it. So I didn't. So I've had everybody that I know that knows something about a computer trying to figure out how to get y'all a video to see. Because if you like me, you want to look at a video, you don't want to see just somebody talking. So what I'm going to show you here is this is us operating the machine. This is not probably the best video that I have. There's another one that's probably in space somewhere from Peter back there to Wes. But I just kind of wanted to show you from inside the tractor what it's going to look like. So to answer your question earlier, I think one of y'all asked something about how
It's opening.
How it's picturing the weeds compared to like maybe the onions for us. So right here, what you can see is this is a weed here. I don't know if y'all can tell from in the back. There's a weed, there's a weed, there's a weed. Everywhere that it's dark, there's a weed there, okay? These are our onions that we have planted. And you can see that the machine, based on how we set it up, I don't remember on this picture when I took it exactly how I had the machine set up, because what it allows us to do is it allows us to do a few things as far as we can select that it sprays only certain weeds or only certain size weeds, okay? So like if I was concerned that I didn't want to get something on my onion and I only wanted to spray the biggest weeds, then I could set it to only spray a weed over 1.5 inches, okay? If I'm not worried about that weed later. If I wanted the crop to get a little bigger so that it can handle some herbicide drift. The next thing that you can do is you can actually set a safety zone so that if there's a weed that's sitting right here and it's less than that safety zone that you set, so let's just say I wanted a 2-inch safety zone around this onion. If this weed, any part of this weed is within that 2 inches, it will not spray that weed, okay? So it's pretty amazing too, the algorithm, how they got it, because there's other technologies too that do like the laser shooting stuff. I've tested it too. It's good, it's great technology, it works. The problem is it's expensive and it's slow. And so right now, it's hard to make the economics of that work. But on this, we can run, there's actually on this program right here, when I was spraying that day, that's a picture that's taken after running 4.5 miles an hour. It is amazing at how fast those solenoids open up and close. That video, if we were able to get it.
Let me try it again.
Yeah.
Maybe it's loaded now. I don't know why it was being strange.
So
Let me try something too.
That's fine.
I know what may be.
So while he's doing that, the reason that I feel like I wanted to purchase the machine was, well, a couple of reasons, of course, is weed control. But I feel like if I can get my coverage, my weed control coverage, without having to broadcast it across the whole field, that's more about what I'm trying to do, okay? Because I'm gotten big into this kick about biology of the soil, and I feel like if I have to spray weed control, I just want to affect that one spot, and then the good biology will take back over and help recover. Okay, so here's a video of us running.
Just switch browsers.
Yeah.
If one don't work, try the other one.
So don't judge me on my bad tractor, my dirty tractor and my. So right here, what this thing's doing is it's showing you all the solenoids, how they're spraying. I didn't pay attention to how fast I was running at that point. There's a lot of weeds in here. It's on purpose. I have not. Typically, when we transplant our onions, we spray immediately after we transplant them, broadcast. Okay. But what I don't grow as good of onion transplants as everybody else, all the onion growers in here. So I have a problem killing my plants with my herbicide, some of them. So right here, if you'll see, everything red is spraying, and everything green is it's identifying as an onion and it's not spraying. That's the actual algorithm that they have on it right now. I'm using a selective herbicide that's not going to kill the onion anyway, so I'm not worried if it does get on it, but I'm just trying to prevent it from getting on it as much as I can. As you can see, I don't know how fast I'm running right there. I don't know, it's on the other screen. I think I go back to it. Yeah. All right, so I'm running 4.7 miles an hour. I'm using, I've covered 3 acres. I've only used 32 gallons of product, and yeah, so I'm using 10 gallons per acre. So typically we would spray 30 gallons per acre.
A third of that, right?
At that time. So it's just, now, I don't know about the science of herbicide. I don't know if we may go back to this field in 2 more months and it looks like a jungle out there. Trust me. But I do a lot of crazy things and it would just look like a jungle. I mean, I spray weed control normally and still have a jungle out there. Okay, so with all the overhead irrigation and all the rain and all that we get, our herbicide it works, but then we lose its effectiveness towards the closer towards harvest. So
let me show anything else from up here. Just this is good.
Perfect.
All right.
And you know, really that's kind of the technology in a nutshell. You know, it's my plan is to not only use it on onions. I'm hoping that it'll help me transition into more direct seeding onions, because everything we do is hand planted. The cost of labor now has caused us to almost be, for me, because I plant a higher population, next year I'll probably almost $1,000 an acre just to plant. So every acre I can direct seed, I'm hoping that it'll pay for this machine. Okay. The machine is, it's going to be, you know, my intentions are to use it on watermelons, use it on non-GMO soybeans, non-GMO corn. I know that corn's going to be a little more trickier because it's going to grow so fast, but that's kind of my intention with the whole machine. So, any questions? No? Yeah.
A lot of questions.
Quick calculations to see how long you think it'll take you to pay for it with savings in chemicals and.
So that day there, when I was running on this day, I calculated, I saved $200 in an hour and 30 minutes by running it on chemical. Okay, so that's just that one day. Now, of course, we don't spray that chemical every day. Now, the other thing that I'm going to be doing is this. It's got to see right here. It says the algorithm is onion. The target is all weeds, and the safety zone is no. Okay, so no safety zone. But what I can do is I can go in and change that target to do only the crop. So I can go in and just spray the onions. When they're small like that, I can spray them with nutrition. I can spray them with fungicide if I want to. But, so that is another thing that, you know, the more that we get on it and kind of just get comfortable with it, the more I'll start to save on that. You know, the biggest savings for me is going to be if we can do direct seeding, which a lot of us this year had to do direct seeding because of the hurricane. We had to try to figure out a way to make up for that lost time, and so we tried it. And I've got some tests. If I'd have done a better job of planning, I would have a better video to show you some of our direct seeded onions, but my onions look horrible, so I'm kind of glad y'all don't get to see those anyway. But yeah, so, you know, honestly, with the price range of this machine, if you do have a specialty crop, I feel like you're gonna be able to make it work. I mean, you're gonna be able to pencil it out, you know. There'll be a couple of years maybe that you technically won't make it pencil out, but then there'll be a couple of years that it'll make up for it, is my thoughts, so. You have a question?
Yeah, so I'm a roboticist, and one of the things that I'm really curious about is what do you want to see out of robotics going forward? What would be helpful?
So,
what information do you want to see?
All right, so for instance, what I would love on this machine as I get to run it, I was talking with him last night about what I wanted to do as this crop transitions. I personally, as fast as this machine is able to calculate, I'd love for the machine to give me data on leaf foliage, size, quality of the leaves, eventually do like Luan was talking about with the sizing of the onions so that I'll kind of know, okay, hey, this is what the projection looks like. Because then I can see if there's anything that we're doing on conventional measure that cause our onions to decline some, that we don't ever see it, you know. So every time I go through the field, I'm not just trying to go through the field to apply something. I want to get a lot of data out of it, as much as I can, so that I can make something happen. The other thing is, on my farm and my operation, if there's a job that I don't like to do, I want a robot to do it. I don't want to hire somebody to do it, okay? Because, you know, it's just a lot of physical things that none of us in this room want to do every day. So I don't want to ask somebody else to do it every day.
And on the flip side of that, is there anything that makes you hesitant about using robots?
You know what? I mean, the cost is always going to be, it's just the economics of everything. But if the funding allows your cost to stretch out so that you can pay for it, I'll go all robotic just because I need to. I mean, now don't get me wrong, we're never going to replace all of us as far as somebody's got to make sure the robot's set up on the right algorithm and all that anyway. But when you're stacking boxes, for instance, planting onions, I mean, that population there was 115,000 onion plants per acre, and they were all hand planted. So we're not talking about like, you know, we're not planting corn at 35,000 plants with a planter. We're planting onions with guys that come in and they literally put them in the hole. So you can imagine of 114,000 plants, the inconsistency of how they're planting that onion. So that's you know, if this machine allows me to do direct seeding, now I can control the depth of the seed. I can do a lot of things on my own to help me hopefully make up 2%, 3%, 4% better yield that will easily pay for the machine.
Thank you.
Yep, we had, another question.
Is there a specific height it needs to be run at? Because I'm thinking about using it over beds,
Yeah.
plastic culture.
I say no, there's no specific height because I argue with them, but no, there is. It's like 28 inches. We were talking about it yesterday. So their algorithm is already designed to run 28 inches at that mile per hour to put out this much fluid. So I go in there and I'm like, okay, well, I want to run it at 2 miles an hour and I want to run it higher, or I want to, you know. So the algorithm is already set up. But the good thing about now, and again, it's not because they're in here, it's because when I try to purchase equipment, I do try to purchase it from folks that are like, that work with you, and they are very good about working with you. Like, it's not like, hey, this is what it is, and this is what you get. They're like, okay, this is what it is, give us more information, tell us how to make it better.
Got a question, Mayor. How you doing? How's the life expectancy of the tubes or whatever whatever produce the laser?
The camera or the tubes?
What's the life expectancy? How many
Years.
hours will operate effectively?
Yeah. Didn't ask that question, Omar, because, yeah, I didn't ask it. But I'm sure it's an aluminum tube. Yeah, it's an aluminum tube. It's tips just like a sprayer that you got, John Deere sprayer. All the components on it are very similar to what we're already using. It's just all condensed. Like, I want to say it's 56 tips. So trust me, if you don't flush it and clean it, you'll remember to do it the next time, because all your tips are going to be all clogged up and you got to take off 156 tips and you're ready to go spray, and it's like, oh my gosh.
But that's a good question. Have they given you any expectation on like the solenoids, right? Because those are going
Yep.
thousands of times
Yeah.
an hour. That's where you're going to start
Yeah.
to see wear, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And honestly, we haven't got to that point yet as far as, it's again, I know the cost of the machine, and we're in a time where the machine's ROI for me is not going to be, okay, in 5 years it's paid off, now I'm making that money back. It's kind of more like, I got to do the job anyway. So if I'm having to put new solenoids on at a reasonable cost, then I just do. I mean, it's like anything else. It's gonna wear and tear. But to answer it, I don't know. Olivia, Catherine, do y'all have, when you're using it in other areas, do you guys have an expectancy on these solenoids? Like, what are y'all seeing?
So far we have like clients that are using 24/7,
Mhm.
and the solenoids are still like ongoing, no problems. The machine, like the life expectancy is at least 5 years, but of course we have like a yearly maintenance, and it depends on how you use the machine, because there's also like the machine is one part of the equation, but another part is like how you're using what
that went well. That went great.
we have several
good.
products that can be more acidity or might more corrosive, and so it really depends on how you use the machine. But again, like it's, as you mentioned, there's also always, like any equipment has maintenance, has replacing parts, and we just support and have all available for whenever is required.
Yep. So like, for instance, y'all, they shipped the machine to me, and I think it had the wrong bars or had something on it that was incorrect. They found later. They sent the products to me. I don't know if they're going to do this all the time, but they just sent it to me and replaced it at their own cost and said, hey, this is the wrong stuff. We found that this didn't work the right way, so we're going to fix it. And they did. So, it's, like I said, they've been really good to work with, and I know I'm not just tooting their horn because I got it. I'm just saying it because, it's out there. But what I like about it is the technology is just like, man, where are we going to go next with this stuff? So.
One last thing, you said you used the laser weeder, the carbon as well.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
You said from a weed control standpoint, that was good, but just speed was the difference between that.
Speed's the difference, yes, sir. So, the carbon, the laser weeder definitely has a place. But like I said, it's the speed of it and it's the cost. It's expensive. It's very expensive. And so I can implement this product, and I'm sure most of you probably can too, and see the return on it pretty quick based on your acreage. Because 4.5 miles an hour, and I'm sure that they can change the algorithm eventually to where you may want to put 20 gallons through it, and you might be able to go 6 miles an hour if you want to, and really cover some distance if you're doing some kind of organic corn or soybeans or something like that too.
All right, I hate to cut it off. This is great. It's a great conversation. So if y'all want to get a hold to Aries after, hopefully he'll be around somewhere. I don't know if you're going to stay in this session or if you'll be around shows somewhere. Appreciate that. I think that's really good to get the perspective from the farmer, and really good data you're getting out of it already too. So up next, just so we can move on into it, we've got Jay Capasso, and Jay is a regional specialized agent focusing on water out of Northeast Florida with the University of Florida. He's at the Live Oak Research Station. He's going to discuss the regional watermelon irrigation management that they've been doing at University of Florida. So with that, Jay.
Thank you, Wes. So I'm Jay Capasso. I'm Regional Specialized Extension Agent for Water Resources. I'm located at the North Florida Research and Education Center, Swanee Valley, located in Live Oak. That's basically in the Swanee Valley agricultural area, just northwest of Gainesville. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a lot of the regional work that we're doing with watermelon. And this is a team effort, a team of county extension agents, regional extension agents. So I want to make that clear that we've got about 6 to 7 extension agents kind of providing these services and doing this work with irrigation and nutrient management in the Swanee Valley agricultural area. So the Florida watermelon industry, we're the biggest producer of watermelon in the country. We produce about 30% of U.S. production. There's about 3.4 billion pounds of watermelon, and we're producing about 1 billion of them, according to USDA, and I believe that's statistics from about 2023. And the Swanee Valley agricultural area accounts for about a third of that production in Florida. There's some production down in southwest Florida, some production in central West Florida, and then production in the Swanee Valley agricultural area, and a little bit of production in the Panhandle as well. So we're lucky we kind of get that market window a little bit before the rest of the country does due to our climate down in Florida. Some of the challenges we face, especially in the Swanee Valley agricultural area, is the water quality and water quantity regulations that we have on us. We have an agricultural BMP program through the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and growers are, I don't want to say required to be enrolled in the program, but if they are not required, they're basically subject to water quality monitoring through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So we recommend them being enrolled in the BMP program because the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services attempts to work with them and provides them agricultural cost share for being part of the program, while the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is more so set up to find them and to regulate. So in the Swanee Valley area, we have the Santa Fe River and the Swanee River, and we have a restoration nitrate concentration that we want to get to of 0.35 milligrams per liter. And that's a really low nitrate concentration in those water bodies and their associated springs, which serve as major tourist attractions in the area, major recreation sites. We generally have a nitrate concentration more around 1 to 2 milligrams per liter. So we've got our work cut out for us, especially in the Swanee Valley agricultural area, where it's a rural area and agriculture is the main source of nutrients. And increasingly, we have regulation related to water quantity as well. We have minimum flow and limits rules set up for these water bodies, especially the Itchitucknee and the Santa Fe rivers, and basically what the local water management districts are finding and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is that some of those river gauges are lower than where they want them to be for ecological purposes. And there's a new rule that's proposed that the legislature will need to basically consider in 2026 that could result in the way it's written now in a 30% reduction of water use in this area for growers. So that's very significant, but the way that rule is written now may not be what actually ends up being implemented. But point being, major water quality and water quantity regulation that our growers are facing. So me being the water resource guy, I work a lot with the irrigation, I speak at the field days, and it's easy for me to go out there and say what the right watermelon irrigation should be. Watermelons, when they're full grown, they have about a root depth of around 15 inches, and depending on the drip tape that you're using, most of our soils are fairly similar. We'd want you to ground truth it for whatever your soil is, and I'm going to talk about ways to do that. But we recommend basically irrigating for an hour to an hour and a half, and depending on basically how deep the roots are on that point of the season. And if it gets in the hotter parts of the year, maybe separating that into maybe 2 or 3 shorter irrigation events. So if we've got a grower doing like a 3 or 4 hour irrigation event, assuming they're on like a 0.4 gallon per 100 feet per minute drip tape, that's probably going to be way too long. However, if we can, especially in the hotter parts of the season, if we can get that into 2 or 3 different irrigation events, that can help maintain water in the root zone better. And just remember that we have very sandy soils, and nitrate is a soluble nutrient, so it leaches very quickly. So, we get out there and we talk about the right amount to irrigate. However, we're only going to know the right amount to irrigate if we can basically see what's going on in our soil. And we can do that using soil moisture sensors, which I'll talk more about. Soil moisture sensors are a great way to see where water, basically the depth that's percolating to in your soil. And then it's also a great way to take a look at the EC. Basically, our soil moisture sensors can measure VIC, volumetric ion content, which is basically indirect measurement of electrical conductivity. So that's another way you can look at where the potassium and then the nitrogen is in your soil. And also blue dye. We have Bob Hockmuth in the audience, who's famous for doing the blue dye demonstrations, and basically you can put that in the soil and irrigate and see how deep you're irrigating. And the famous line for that is, "The blue dye don't lie." So when it comes to soil moisture sensor use, some of the improvements that we're seeing is better nutrient management, better water use efficiency, and you can see we've got some lines here, and it might be kind of hard to see, but we had a grower that was irrigating twice for long events during the day, and he was still kind of running out of moisture in the root zone, and this is a very hot period of the year, probably going into about May or so. And working with the regional extension agents at the time, he transitioned to irrigating 3 times a day for shorter events and was able to maintain water in the root zone for longer. So that's some of the things that we can see using the soil moisture sensors. And there's also economic benefits to this. Managing your fertilizer better is good from an economic point of view. And then it doesn't cost money to pump the water, but it does cost money for the energy that you use to be able to pump the water. So it's good from an economic point of view as well. This is another great example. This is looking at basically the EC or the VIC in the soil. And this is in watermelon basically before the plant has even been planted. So there's about a 2-week window here, and you can see, I thought this had, there it is. You can see basically where with the irrigation events that were happening in that 2-week window before planting, when the bed was laid and they began irrigating, that you can see most of the VIC or the nutrient content was at 16 and 20 inches. So yeah, maybe the watermelon root zone gets down to about 15 inches, but definitely not right at the beginning of the season when we're putting in transplants. So that's just an idea of, if we're over-irrigating, how quickly we can lose nutrients, and in this case, before the watermelons were even planted. So we have a high adoption of soil moisture sensor use in the Swanee Valley agricultural area. We have about 80% of our growers are using the soil moisture sensors. And part of the reason for that is we have agricultural cost share through that BMP program, where depending where the grower is located, if they're located in a more sensitive area, it's a 90% cost share. So they have to purchase the soil moisture sensor, but they get reimbursed for about 90% of that cost. Or 75% depending on basically where they're located. And many growers are willing to work with us, provide us the login information for their soil moisture sensor, and we work very closely with many of the soil moisture sensor vendors as well. And this is an example from BMP Logic here of their dashboard and a soil moisture sensor we were working with that they manage. But we use different vendors, AquaSpy, BMP Logic, and we do not have a preference. We tell growers to work with whichever one that they're comfortable with using in terms of the dashboard, and then also to make sure that they're the vendor that they trust coming out to fix the technical issues. So we have a soil moisture sensor network at the University of Florida too. This started out in Live Oak at the North Florida Research Education Center back in 2018, where we had about 20 units. And basically the way the soil moisture sensor network works is that we provide a grower a demo soil moisture sensor to use for 1 season. They learn how to use it, and then we collect it at the end of the year. And we educate them through the process of how to interpret the data. And then if they like using it, well, there is agricultural cost share, so we point them in the direction of the local water management districts or the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to be able to get their own. And you can see how the soil moisture sensor network has expanded over the years. It's now a statewide program. We're closer to about 100 units now, but back in, you see it expanded from 20 units basically in the Swanee Valley agricultural area to being all over the state now. And there's a little bit in the Panhandle, but when you get into the western Panhandle, there's less irrigation in general. So that's why you see less of it in the Panhandle. And then I wanted to show that blue dye demonstration, just another great way to verify how deep you're irrigating. And you can get this blue dye, this marker dye at any agricultural retailer. It's similar to the kind of stuff you would spray pesticide-wise to see where you sprayed. And it's a great example of basically nitrate movement in your soil, and a great extension demonstration as well. And you can see how sandy our soils are in the Swanee Valley area. Another new technology we've been working with a lot and pushing is the automated irrigation systems. So, somebody like me can tell you to irrigate the right amount, but if you have to run around turning on and off valves, it's not going to be practical. So having automated irrigation actually makes what I'm saying and what I'm preaching at the field days possible. So we have about automated irrigation equipment on approximately 2,000 acres of watermelon in the Swanee Valley area, which is about 20 to 25%. We have around 10,000 acres of watermelon. So it's something that's being adopted very quickly. And we have a number of different vendors that are selling this equipment. The most common ones I hear from are Netafim and Toro. And that's a picture of the Toro Tempest system. And basically, they can turn on and off systems from anywhere. They can have sensors basically tell you the flow rate or the pressure basically in the system, which can tell you if something's going wrong. If your flow rate is, if you have super high flow rate and a low pressure, maybe you have a leak in the system. If you have a super high pressure and a low flow rate, maybe something's clogged up. So maybe you can tell if something's going wrong with the system without having to be there. I think there will always be something to be said about ground truthing this and visiting the field. But I think it's something that makes a lot of the management that we're preaching with irrigating the right amount possible. And potential cost savings could be labor and then also fuel and time just driving to the fields of using this equipment. And there's also the potential to set these up with weather sensors and with soil moisture sensors so that the system would turn off if it's raining or if it has adequate moisture. I'm not aware of any growers doing that yet in the Swanee Valley area. However, that's potential to dive further into that automation. And then you need some kind of a communication option in the field, generally cellular, but also Wi-Fi or LoRa are options. And there are sensors that can be added as desired. One other really cool service that we're doing is basically been pushed through Mark Warren, our Levy County Extension agent, and he's been doing a drip irrigation uniformity test. And he's basically doing a flush test with the irrigation system and looking at taking an EC meter and looking at when the fertilizer that's injected through the system comes out through the furthest point away and seeing how long that takes. So what he does is they'll pressurize the system and they'll get it running. They'll take a baseline electrical conductivity reading with his electrical conductivity meter. And then once they establish that baseline, they're using basically a PVC pipe. They're collecting the water every 2 minutes and basically determining when that fertilizer is coming through the furthest point of that system. And that's really interesting because especially in situations where there are issues with topography or there's issues with where you're injecting being pretty far away from the field, there are situations where maybe the fertilizer, the liquid fertilizer is being left in the drip or in the irrigation system. And so it basically just tells us that it's coming out and we're knowing how long we have to irrigate for to inject that fertilizer. So really cool work that Mark Warren is doing here. I believe he's done this test on about 70 different fields now. And you can see in this picture how it's greener basically around this lateral here. And then as you move further out, it becomes less green. And that was an issue with the fertilizer basically not being injected until the end. So in conclusion, doing the correct irrigation practices are really important, and it's important, especially in our sandy soils, for nutrient management. We are in a situation now with University of Florida where a lot of our fertilizer rates are being taken by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services that were meant to be informative and now are becoming quasi-regulatory. And a lot of growers are saying, well, I can't fertilize based on that rate. And there's a lot of work that we need to do to update those rates because a lot of them are back from the 80s and whatnot. But my point being there is, well, if you're irrigating a lot, you're going to need more fertilizer. And yes, that rate is not going to work. So irrigating the right amount is a really important part of nutrient management. Soil moisture sensors and blue dye can confirm basically the depth of your irrigation. Automated irrigation can kind of make a lot of this management possible and irrigating the right amount. And we've done a lot of different extension events in partnership with industry, especially with automated irrigation. We had a irrigation expo this year at the North Florida Research Education Center, Swanee Valley, that Wes and others were part of, and basically educating on a lot of this different technology. And then this is the crew here, the county and regional extension agents. They do a lot of different work, a lot of it irrigation related to watermelon, but also we do the petiole sap testing, checking the growers' nitrate and potassium levels, and doing different control release fertilizer demos on farm has been a lot of the work that we're doing. So it includes me, it includes Emily Beach in Lafayette County, Tyler Pittman in Gilchrist County, who's been pushing a lot of the automated irrigation work. And then, of course, Mr. Bob Hockmuth, aka Mr. Watermelon, the regional specialized extension agent for vegetables at the North Florida Research Education Center, Swanee Valley. Tatiana Sanchez-Jones, who's done a lot of work with watermelon grafting. And then Mark Warren, who's done a lot of the work with the flush test that I was talking about and is the county extension director in Levy County. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jay. Y'all have any questions for Jay? No, covered it well. Well, Jay's going to be around for a little while, I know, for today, so catch him if you got any further questions for him. So up next, I told you we're rotating out and back. We've actually got two farmers back to back, but first we've got Cliff Reiner. And Cliff used to be, when I met Cliff, he was with UGA Extension as an agent, and then he was over our Vidalia and Onion Research Center there, and then he moved on to production. Now he's VP for Agricultural Production and Grower Relations with GNR Farms. So, and Cliff's going to talk to you about advanced Vidalia onion packing. So let me get his presentation pulled up here.
Well, thank you. I may move around. If I do, I'll try to talk a little louder. But yeah, Luan had called earlier in the year, a couple of months ago, and knew we had purchased at GNR Farms a new modern cup sizer with some other grading capabilities, kind of the most state of the art at the time thing, and how that's impacted the crop is kind of what he wanted to talk about. My portion of the experience and what we benefit from. So, it is related to precision agriculture. I think a lot of times we think about precision agriculture in terms of like GPS and everything, but as the guide said earlier, we're going to be asking more and more and more of technology. The hard part, I think, is to understand for anybody, large or small grower, is what they need and what they don't need. And I'll show you some references of that going forward. So, what we're talking about, I don't have an elaborate presentation today, so this is going to be more open forum and discussion if anybody wants to ask specific questions. But, the tools in your toolbox, I think anything we do in precision ag, even grid sampling, is a tool in the toolbox. So if a producer's thinking about adding technology, they have to understand what their goal, if they get that technology, is. I think back to, the things I've seen adopted over the years when I was doing my undergrad work. There was a lot of the GPS stuff was just getting started on autonomous steering, some georeference things with irrigation. There's a lot of that that's changed and definitely advanced to where we're looking at robotics and fully autonomous other things. But the goal of what you need as a producer should be kept in mind. So Aries brought up earlier in his talk the goal of being more precise with his weed control, which is hopefully going to impact the environment or the ecosystem around those plants. So that's going to be a different goal for somebody who's not concerned about that. So, but they may be using the same tool or technology to address that. And can additional resources be added later? So the biggest thing I see as a threat to adopting technology is the fact that it could easily be outdated. You know, I know everybody in this room probably at least at some point, or 90% of us, have had a desktop computer, but most don't now. You know, I still have one, but you know, you use the laptop more than anything, and then it gets that you're using your phone more than your laptop.
How about this? All our administrative assistants' desktops are about this big now.
Yeah. And so, you know, those desktops were expensive at the time in relevance. And so that type of thing is something to be considered. Certain technologies do seem to be able to add on modernization and continue to function. But the reality is that whatever we purchase today, it could be outdated before the piece of equipment is paid off, thus rendering it, at least to us or somebody in our realm, invaluable. So that is a true threat to technology, and we'll just talk about that a little bit more in the future. And like I said, think of your old cell phone. You know, when we purchase any cell phone, and this goes both ways. It goes from the outdated part of it. There's not a phone the next phone I try to purchase would probably be in another year or two. I want to get the most modern, up-to-date phone. Well, that's been our goal every time we've bought a new phone. But think about how many times you've had to buy a phone in the past 10 years. And when you bought it, you figured, the first one 10 years ago said, man, this thing will last me 10 or 12 years, and it doesn't. If you buy it with the intention of it lasting 2 years, it might last a year, year and a half. So that being said, with the fact that all the features on this phone that I have in my pocket, I don't use. I use like 2 or 3 of them. So the good thing with precision agriculture, if we're smart and keep it in mind, and it goes back to the goal, is only purchase what you're really needing. There's no sense in buying and putting on apps on this phone that I'm never going to open and look at. But they come with it anyway because they're trying to sell, make money. And so we have to be able to distinguish between that going forward. So more specific to what the discussion, they wanted me to talk about it and how it relates to Vidalia onion packing. This is the schematic or overview of our installation of the grader. This is kind of a busy idea, but one of the things that we put into our facility that's a little different. Everybody kind of can customize these machines to do what they want to. For us, our old machine was so outdated, any improvement was going to be an improvement. But as the onions come down this belt, we'll talk about this area here later, but they basically come here, go through here, and this is the computer. This is the technology. Of the $1.5 million this thing may cost, this is the million, and everything else is $500,000. So this box here is where all the brains work, and then it sorts based on this decision in this computer here which of these blue lines to follow. So the biggest thing that we did, though, is we wanted to be able to package product to go to a retail customer on this side, and then this side of the machine is really just a fancy way to separate the onions we're going to put up into storage. So with Vidalia onion production, we have a short window of harvest of about 4 to 6 weeks in April and May. But the onions that we harvest in that, about 65% of that every year, we're putting in the storage for later sales. So these onions are sold in the fresh season as we're harvesting. There's about 35% of those going in here weekly, and the rest of it we're going to have an intention of putting the best ones of that block here on this side. So we'll talk about that a little bit. From a machinery standpoint and technology, you know, cup sizers and electronic graders and all are getting more and more advanced every day. I'm not going to bore with that, but I wanted to talk about my experience on the farm. How does the field guy benefit from this technology? So let's talk about the alternative. So if I didn't want to spend the money to buy a multi-million-dollar grader, I'm going to use an old-fashioned chain grader. It separates by size. The difference between that mechanized type separation is the individuality of the onion. So both on the packing side and the prepared side for storage and on prepared side for other packaging, if we graded 1,000 bins of onions with an old grader or with a chain sizer, the other outdated technology, we could say, okay, we have so many coils, we have 700 bins of jumbo, so many bins, 200 bins of mediums, and 50 bins of colossals. Okay, that makes sense. That's a percentage breakdown based on size. And that's interesting information to have, and we've used that and benefited from it. What this machine will allow us to do, though, is to take each one of those sizes and be drilled down another layer or two deep to be more specific for our retail customers, but also more specific in our inventory management. So the storage is 65% of the bulk of our crop that is perishable. So our goal by harvesting the crop is to get it in the coolers to lower the temperature and kind of dormant that onion as fast as possible. But we need to be accurate for future sales and future efficiencies. What this computer will allow us to do, instead of saying we had 20 bins of mediums on this lot, is we know exactly the inventory based on size. So we could even take a medium-sized onion and subdivide that, or we could take a jumbo-sized onion and subdivide that. More and more, it's not what the customer wants as bulk, as they want very tight and specific specifications. One of the reasons we're able to get a slight premium over the wholesale market to certain retailers is we're able to deliver like a cookie cutter size onion each time. So some customers want a 3¼ inch diameter bottom. Some want a 3½ inch. That 1/4 inch difference is big. So our old way of doing things, we had a lot of waste. So the efficiency here is key. So from my benefit though in the field is per lot, I can get an instant view, instant feedback. So if we talked about Aries is seeing with his laser weeder or eco robotic reader, is that instant data. So when they're running the onions, I go into the box here and see what the computer's saying in this Bird's booth that basically has the computers that's reading the data. If I say a lot of onion, I want to see what it is, see what the breakdown is. I get instant data. It's like, can you imagine taking a soil probe and pushing it in the ground and getting the instant pH, the instant potassium level? Can you imagine pulling the leaf off and like putting it on your cell phone and getting all the readings? That instant data is something, if you've never had it, you don't know what you're missing. Think about it now. We never had an iPhone or a smartphone until we had one. Now we're hooked. So from a manager, from my role, I get instant data separation for me. So if I'm trying to make a variety of decisions, in the old way of doing things, think about it this way, in the old way of doing things, even being organized, I had to store all 65% of my crop, storage, and wait to the end of August or 1st of September to collect data to make a decision to buy seed of the next variety or this soil type for this variety. I get it instantly now at harvest. So there's a big benefit of that. I would like to highlight that these tools that are maybe even unforeseen that are beneficial. But so one of the things that we approach this from an elementary view is each one of these sizes is like, this is basically an autonomous bin destacker. So we stack 3 bins on this side. It goes through here and then it subdivides those 3 bins into individual bins. They get filled here and go out here and come here and get restacked to go to storage. So that just saves a lot of forklift traffic and time. that's kind of irrelevant from my point of the view, but my main thing is you can see that I have this all these 6 options and plus these 2 more that are not part. 6 ways I can divide the onions that are coming out. So I can be real specific if I wanted to. And we have done that. That's the elementary point of view of like you getting a new phone and saying, okay, let's touch this app and see what it does. Let's touch this and see what it does. What I know now, after doing this a year or 2, is I'm like, okay, that's good and it's worked out, and we are going to do a percentage of our crop for that. I forgot about this piece of data here, the use of this computer, the data that we're getting that we can benefit from. So remember I talked about the individuality of the onion. It's not the group, but it's the individual. Is that data is represented. So let's just say instead of making this a small jumbo lane, and this one a large jumbo lane, and this one a colossal lane, and this one a different size colossal lane, is let's just put everything in the same bin. Why not? You've got every one of those onions that goes in those bins individually categorized by the statistics. So from an inventory management, the hard part is we fill up our coolers with thousands of bins of onions. As fast as we can go, we want to get that cooler full, close the door and lower the temperature to preserve that onion. So when we pull out 80 bins, not thousands. We may pull out 60, we may pull out 40 to pack an order here or there. The problem with that is we don't know what's in those bins. So we may have to pull out 80 to only use 65. We may pull out this to only use a portion or not do enough, and then you're late on delivery coming out of storage. So the individuality, the statistics that this can provide me with proper inventory management is I know if I need to pack I'm always packing a diverse portfolio of onions anyway. So some customers want a big one, some want a little one, and some want a more tightly wound little one. And so I've got those individual statistics in that room. I can tell and save the efficiency of drying and waste. And the black molds and things we see really aren't caused, really most of the time, just from poor inventory management. Is we have too many bins that we utilize on the floor. So from a statistics standpoint, this is an unforeseen benefit that we've seen, that we can take the individuality and look at not only how many bins of mediums, how many bins of jumbos, but specifically how many onions of that size. And that's a really good data point that's benefited us, and I think we're going to continue to thrive and see some other things. So, but one of the things I wanted to mention back at this area, a lot of the cup sizers have been, just like phones, they started years ago. Some of our neighbors and competitors have been on their 3rd, 4th, and 5th version of a cup sizer. So they were grabbing the technology earlier. One of the things that they have learned the hard way is, y'all have seen onions. You understand that not all onions are jumbos, not all onions are colossals. You got some small ones. The small ones on a cup can really hold 2 or sometimes even 3 small onions, and they're what we call piggyback. So they piggyback in that cup, but this computer is designed to look at the individual size of that cup, and it gets the geometric framing of that onion to do a sizing. What if there's 3 onions there or 2 onions there, or one's overlapping the other, it kicks it. It's called a piggyback. It cycles and there's more bruising. So we mechanically sized out the smaller onions here. So we take out the peewees here and the smaller mediums here. Our larger mediums do go into one of these lanes for separation, but the larger medium doesn't get piggybacked as much. So that's been a benefit that we've learned from everybody else. I'm going to go to the next slide, but we can come back to this for any questions. And again, I think, how does this help the field? So my role is in the production side. I go into the shed really for my own benefit, to try to track what we're doing. We're all emotionally attached to our crop. We're emotionally attached to some varieties more so than others. I'll give you an example. So I don't own the place. My boss owns the place. He likes certain varieties that I dislike. So I go here to get the data to prove to him my variety's better than his. So, I mean, but that's a benefit. How does it benefit the field guy it's data, it's information instantaneously. A lot of the sheds that were built in the Vidalia onion region when they took off were considered packing sheds, okay? Because they brought in a crop, they had to get them packaged to get them out and make money. And that's still the case, a heavy percentage of that crop. But most of us bring in that big wad of onions. We're getting new technology, new varieties. We're learning more from the University of Georgia. And we're increasing yield. And the bigger part of our portfolio is that 65% storage. So for me, I have to do a better job in storage, and I have to look at it. It's not a packing shed. It's a sorting shed to handle the packaging, but also the preparation for the majority. That 65% of onions we store is the majority, and we have to really address that. Otherwise, we're going away from home. So from the field guy gets that instant data. This crop is beautiful. We did everything right here. So I want to make sure it goes through the nth degree to the end till we're tracking what we need out of it. So I can go back to the other slide or answer any other questions.
Y'all have any questions for Cliff?
Yes, ma'am.
I actually have two. So when you talk about your sorting line, the more sorting lines that you have, does that dictate the speed that you can get through sorting material?
In theory, so what we try to do is we have an incoming, and this is something we didn't do until we had this because there really wasn't a need for it, is we do an incoming QC. As the onions are coming in, we have a sub-samples as we're going in to know, hey, is this field a little bit higher in mediums or a little bit larger in colossals? And so then when they're preparing to run that lot, we typically do like one drop here of large mediums and 2 of jumbos and 1 or 2 of colossals. We can change those percentages up. The other thing this machine will allow us to do is we're packing that 35% for fresh orders while we're also storing. If we're running behind the amount of onions that go to here to go to the box for the store versus going to the bins for storage, we can change those percentages instantly. You just type it in and hit enter, and it starts doing it. Yeah.
So if you have that data in real time, is it also able to tell you, bins 1 through 100 have these percentages, and then after you do the inventory management, and you're looking at percentages of your sizing, then you know what, like you can do sub-lots at that point.
That's right. Yeah, that's the part that we weren't really prepared thinking of it as a result. Another thing along those same lines, the hard part is when that forklift driver gets here is what to do with them. And so I have to think ahead of okay, we typically used to say if we've got smaller rooms, like 15,000 bushel storage rooms and 30,000 bushel storage rooms, we'd always say, let's use the mediums in the small rooms and the big, because we got more of the big ones, And so by this measure, we can put them in a room and close the door faster and lower the temperature. So it's a trade-off. You're getting speed and efficiency, which helps the pack out because of preservation versus the other way of just doing it the old-fashioned way. What I want to mention, though, is data loggers. The advance in the technology of taking a sticker that we always just put a sticky sticker with all the computer information. They're advancing data loggers now that will monitor individuality of the bin, but also that sticker will tell temperature, time, and how long it's been in that room, a lot of things. It's a sensor on the sticker, and it's got a battery that lasts like so many months. But that's going to be the next top technology I think that we would potentially use, is especially with really my favorite variety, so to speak, or the ones we're really trying to get the most money out of. We'll adopt that first there because we really want to learn from the temperature, the inventory management, the individuality of that bin. So right now you have more like subgroups, the daily lots. So the dates would change based on that lot you're packing, but you could even do it, below that.
All right, I think with that, let's thank Cliff again for the presentation. I think it was really good and informative. I've seen him around. I know he's still going to be around some. If y'all got more questions for him, if you want to catch him out in the hall really quick. We've got 2 more presenters and on the fault of mine, we're just a few minutes behind, not that bad. 5 or 10 minutes, I don't think it's too bad. It's been really good discussion here, and I've appreciated everything. So up next, we've got Ross Williams, president of Titan Peach Farms out of Ridge Spring, South Carolina. So Ross, staying with the theme of packing, he's going to step into some of the peach packing they utilize and leveraging new packing technology, packing house technologies, excuse me.
Good morning. My name is Ross Williams. I'm the president of Titan Farms in Ridge Spring, South Carolina, and I hope to give you guys a little bit of information this morning around how to leverage new packing house technologies. The precision ag space is really kind of coming around now, but for years, technology in the packing house has been such that we have been able to adopt and find some cost savings and some value addition in our operation. So today we'll discuss a few different topics. First, I'll tell you who we are, and then we'll get into a really large packing house renovation that we did back in 2015-16, which is almost 10 years old now, but at this point, we've continued to add and to update our technology to make sure that it stays relevant. The technologies and the key areas we implemented those and what benefits we realized. We'll talk about a few other areas to consider, some other areas that we've utilized new technologies in our facility, and a couple things that we're looking at for the future, and then we'll get into some recommendations for how to implement the technologies. So Titan Farms is family owned and operated by Chalmers and Lori Carr. It was founded in 1999, and at the time was 1,000 acres of peaches, nothing else, and a real small pack house. We're now over 6,000 acres of peach, 1,000 acres of vegetables. We've got about 15 acres under roof between fresh packing and further processing. We are completely vertically integrated from growing all the way through sales, and we include further processing an IQF system that helps us to utilize our off grades and turn that into a value-added consumable product. We have been able to achieve a growth of 3x over the past 20 years, averaging 15% year over year. You can see most of that growth there in our peach acreage. Vegetable acreage was on the uptick as well until 2019, and we realized 500 acres of peppers was a bit out over our skis, so we dialed that back to a more manageable volume, and we've stayed there ever since. Our product brand menu, you can see a lot of the different brands we offer throughout the marketplace in both fresh and frozen lines. The most notable being our Titan brand. You would see that in most grocery stores across the country. And then we have a lot of our frozen commodities down across the bottom. All of these having distribution across the U.S., focusing mostly east of Dallas. We do go a little bit over to Colorado and Denver. Every now and then we have exports into Canada and Mexico as well. About 20% of our crop goes into Canada and a smaller percentage into Mexico, but that's a new market for us. And so we'll now get into our pack house renovation that took place in 2015-16. And so I spent the majority of my career at Titan Farms. When I say majority, basically my entire career spent at Titan Farms. I started off in the packing house as a young guy in high school all the way through college. And I actually had the unique opportunity to come online full-time in 2014 to participate in the planning, the implementation, and ultimately, I was the guy that got pointed to figure out how in the heck to make all this stuff work once we got the packing house fully renovated. So we gutted our packing house to the studs and rebuilt with food safety and functionality in mind. And then we implemented and installed a brand new state-of-the-art packing line. This was a full turnkey installation from CBT dumping system all the way through to automated palletizing. And what I'd like to do today is to focus in on some of the key areas of innovation and tell you really where we've received benefit from those. The first being automated bin tipping. Then we move into our color and infrared sorting on down to massive 8-lane commit-to-pack sizer, traceability and handling of all of our cartons, and then finally automated packing or palletizing and wrapping. And so starting off at bin handling, dumping, and washing, it's one of the most simple things we do in a packing house is getting the product out of the bin. But it still takes labor. Somebody still has to be there operating a dumping system, forklifts. So what we did was we actually installed an automated destacking and in-feed system that destacks all of our bins and automatically feeds into 2 continuous bin tippers. That allowed us to reduce our labor needed there by 66%. yeah, 2 or 3 guys associated to dumping doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but every time you're making a reduction there, you're benefiting. I mean, the cost of your box in the packing house is somewhere between $3 and $4. Your overall cost probably 12 to 16, regardless of what you're doing. Any benefit you can make on that $3 to $4 is certainly helpful. All of our empty bins get automatically discharged through the overhead in our facility out to an automated bin washer. That automated bin washer scrubs, washes, and sanitizes every bin prior to heading back out to the field. So not only does that add some significant value to our food safety program, but it also completely eliminated any labor needed for bin sanitation for those that do wash their bins. And then we move on to our color and infrared multi-pass grading and sorting system. This was probably the biggest challenge that we ran into during the installation, implementation, and ultimately in the operation of our new line. We partnered with the manufacturer to develop both the procedures, processes, and the proper wavelengths of infrared to be able to sort stone fruit by quality. When you try to sort stone fruit, the majority of what you're taking out is softs, but if all you're looking at it with is a color image, you can't see a soft spot on a peach with a color image. So we had to find the proper wavelengths of infrared. But what we have today is a much more consistent pack of fruit from a quality standpoint. We're not only able to take all of our bad fruit away, but we're able to say it's bad because of these reasons, and then we can send it down to our processing facility and actually add more value to that product because we know what it is. We know we can turn it into a slice, a dice, or different juices. We're also able to control the defect tolerances very nicely on a more consistent basis. So we can say, okay, I'm okay with this defect being in my box because it's not going to have any impact on the shelf life or the consumer experience on that piece of fruit. Next, we get a higher throughput per hour, on average about 20% in comparison to our previous packing line. And it also allows for a more stable production rate regardless of the input fruit quality. Anybody in here that operates a packing house knows that when you get to that one block that you know has 60% soft in it, you have to slow down or add people. That's the only way you can get through that block. But we're able to run at the exact same production rate every hour all day long now because the camera system doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how fast you're running. You can take every single piece of fruit out if you need to. And we then saw a drastic reduction in sorting labor. So the picture on the right, if that looks like anybody's packing house, we had 42 people on sorting tables sorting fruit. I mean, that labor bill today at $16 an hour for H2A would break the bank. But today, we're actually operating with 4 people on those sorting tables. So we've been able to relocate 38 of those original 42 into higher valued positions that don't necessarily incur costs that you're not getting the benefit out of. So we were then able to take those people and expand our value-added packaging offerings on different lines set up specifically for value-added. So we went from 5% value-added offerings to now over 50% of our crop leaves in value-added package type that has a higher perceived value with very minimal input cost. Then we move on to our 8-lane commit to pack and pre-sort line, and just like the gentleman before, we're actually able to use this line in multifaceted, both committing fruit to be packed as well as pre-sorting to go into storage and then convert it into a value-added package type later. But one of the key things that we didn't really think about when we installed this machine was in the innovative approach to filling boxes. So if you're running anything from a volume filler standpoint, you probably have a scale in the volume filler and the product drops into the box. Well, there's weight given away every single box that you pack because you're not registering the fruit in the air at the time the box says, hey, I'm good. We now batch weight to our volume fillers, so we take the combined weight from the fruit based on the load cell from the sizer, distribute it to the volume fillers, and on average we're seeing 1.5% higher fruit utilization than we would if we were using fillers with scales in them. Again, we pre-sort the fruit for value-added packaging downstream, so we're able to find selected sizes and qualities of fruit that we want to put up for, say, Aldi bags or one-layer trays, and we were able to go ahead and grade and size that fruit so that when it gets time for hand packing, all the packer has to do is put 8 and roll. There's no quality control needed. There's no grading needed at that table. They're packing and rolling. That allowed us to reduce our value-added input labor by 4 cents. We were seeing anywhere from 10 to 12 cents a pound in labor need for most of our value-added package types. By making the change towards pre-sorting on this main line here, we were able to reduce that input cost. And lastly, the automated outlet assignment. So if you've ever run a sizer, you have to assign a size or quality to an individual filler, and how many times a day do you make those changes? The machine does that automatically for us based off of the overall population of fruit at a given time. So the operator is able to focus more time on throughput than making changes on the machine to be able to accommodate all the fruit. Automated case labeling and tracking system that also has a PTI print and apply system incorporated into it. And how many people's packing house you have rolls of PTI labels laying all over the floor, guys running around, who knows if the labels are getting on the right boxes. We're able to apply these in line so that it eliminates a lot of the issues from an accuracy standpoint, but it allows us to have traceability start to finish, and it reduces the labor needed for the PTI process very substantially. We're also able to now track and direct all of the cases through this automated carton handling system using that PTI label with a cross-reference code embedded in the barcode. And so what that means is now instead of your stackers running around looking for the different sizes or qualities they're supposed to be stacking, now we deliver those cases immediately to the stacker, so we're able to reduce the labor need there by 14%. And lastly, we move on to our automated palletizing and wrapping, and this is going to be a little bit elementary, but that wrapper right there is probably the best thing that we ever did. Not only do we have a more consistent controllable wrap amount on every single pallet, but are reducing our plastic wrap spend, and it's a really nice sound wrap job that allows breathability through the pallet, and we have confidence that that pallet's going to make it to the end customer and not tipped over in the truck. From a labor saving standpoint, this replaced one old guy that really couldn't see and kept getting his feet run over by forklifts. So there's some benefit there, but at the end of the day, that pallet wrapper is really a good investment. And the automated palletizing creates a much more consistent pallet because your layers are more consistent when you go to actually palletize, and it's reduced our labor need there by 42% as well. So all in all, that entire investment into that packing line took our mainline staffing from 110 running 80 bins an hour to 46 people running 110 bins an hour. So you do that math, that you can pay for something like that very quickly until you throw in freeze years and crop losses. There's a lot of things that go into play that you may stretch out your ROI just a little bit. So additional innovations to consider that we've implemented, either have implemented in our packing house or are considering to implement in our packing house. ERP softwares, I can't tell you how many packing houses I go into that are still running paper inventory. And ERP software, you will not be dissatisfied with the decision. I don't care which one you go with. If you're running paper inventory, you go to an ERP, you can't make a wrong decision. It adds value not only to your traceability, but also your inventory management, your truck loading processes. Everything becomes much more manageable. Cloud-based record keeping for QC, QA, and food safety. We have implemented business-wide, both in facility and on farm, cloud-based record keeping for all of our sanitation checklists, all of our QC checklists, every sample that we perform, all of our water quality sampling, everything is done in that cloud-based software. And so that data is not only visible, but it's useful. Prior to the cloud-based system, I had notebooks this thick stacked up on my desk, and if we had a quality complaint, you went and dug through all the notebooks, tried to find your paper sample, and then all you had was a piece of paper that you could send to Walmart and say, hey, well, our piece of paper says it was okay. Now we have photos of every single sample, and it's immediate. You search it by lot number, and you have all of your relative samples associated to the complaint. Value-added packaging efficiencies. So we're talking automatic tray packers, baggers. Onion guys have been using baggers forever, but for peach and soft fruit growers, automated equipment is a little bit more difficult. We are doing a lot of investigating into additional automation for value-added packaging. Have not implemented any today. And lastly, AI. Everybody hears AI. Oh, our system has AI in it. What in the heck does that even mean, and what does it do for me? So we're watching AI very closely and how we can utilize and implement AI technologies in our operation to help make it run more smoothly. So we'll move on to recommendations for selection of technology. I think these are some really important tidbits of information that I learned throughout the entire process of the renovation and even since when we've made changes in our packing house. But what is the problem to solve? You know, you see all the technology out there and it's all flashy, but what are you going to do with it? What problems are you going to solve with it? You need to be very specific in that problem and understand the costs associated, be it monetary, headaches, regulatory compliance. What are you trying to solve there? The goals to achieve, are you going to solve a pain? Are you going to create a gain? Are you going to add value? And then lastly, what are the ROI expectations? You really have to make a decision and hold yourself to it. If you expect to make an investment, you're going to get your money back in year one. You send me whatever that investment is, because you're not going to do that in a packing house environment. But be specific on what your expectations are for the return. And then implementation, absolute must-dos. Who is going to be responsible? You have to build out an implementation plan. And when I say an implementation plan, sit down, write it down. Who's going to be responsible for researching and implementing this technology? How are you going to incorporate it into your existing processes? And what is the full implementation expected? Like, what does it look like? When do you want it to be fully implemented? All of that you need to decide before you ever go into venture into selecting the right technology. Training plan in place. I cannot tell you how important having a training plan for operators and users is. You have to absolutely insist on a training plan from the manufacturer. If they won't give you one, don't buy it. They should be held accountable to training you on their equipment. Ensure the proper time is allocated for operators. Training. You try to do something in the off season, you try to get it done, and all of a sudden you're bumping up against harvest, but you got to take a step back and you got to say, no, we've got to allow the proper time for people to be trained. Otherwise, the entire season is going to be a disaster. And if possible, have the manufacturer administer an exam following the training. It's going to really help you to understand who the best operator is. Let's say you pick 3 or 4 people you wanted to get trained. It'll really highlight who best understands the technology. And then lastly, KPI tracking in place. You've got to understand what benefits are you receiving from the technology as you're going, because otherwise you're going to be yelling at your people saying, well, you're not doing what it's supposed to do. Well, how do you know if you're not even tracking it? So to wrap it up with rising input costs, I think we all should be embracing technology in our packing houses that will help us to reduce labor, increase labor efficiency, and also add value to our products. And then again, lastly, the implementation plan. The absolute biggest waste of money that I see in packing houses is you walk in, they got a nice shiny brand new bagger sitting over in a corner, and you say, hey, how do you like it? Oh, we're not using it because they haven't had time to teach anybody how to use it. Like, okay, so you wrote a check for $200,000 and it's just sitting in the corner and you're not using it. Just absolutely have an implementation plan, because if you don't understand how to use it, how to incorporate it, and ensure your people are trained in the proper use, it's an absolute waste of money. You'd have been better off burning your money. So with that, are there any questions with anything that I've shared today?
Thank you, Ross.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Tell me again what your stats were in terms of, like you said, 108 beds an hour.
So we had 110 people running 80 bins an hour with our old Durant whaling line. Now with the new compact line, I say new, it's 10 years old now, but now we're running 46 people. We're running 100 to 110 bins an hour when we get to July with larger fruit.
Now, what are those 46? I mean,
It's palletizing, forklift guys, your girl that's monitoring your PLU labels, operators, QC staff. That 46 incorporates literally everybody associated with that machine.
now, did most of the, well, I guess you had a good amount of staff savings at grading.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That was the biggest reduction, was
the
grading.
biggest reduction was the grading.
Yeah.
And then the second most was in the palletizing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep. I mean, we would need 18 guys stacking today. That's what we would need, but we've got 7 on most days. Sometimes 8, depending on how many SKUs we're putting out. But
That automatic palletizer, sorry, I got it. y'all are stacking the boxes, and then there's a pallet tie in there?
We don't have any ties. We don't put any ties on those.
So straight boxes with just the plastic wrap on
Yeah,
there?
but it's pre-stretched plastic wrap. So when it goes through the wrapping machine, it actually pre-stretches it, so you get a lot more like tensile strength out of it. And then it ropes it down, so it adds more tensile strength, but also allows the pallet to breathe. So we don't have any issues with no pallet ties. There's no slip sheet and there's no pallet tie.
I have a question from your quality perspective, and Aries kind of hit on this with his, so you've automated a lot of this, and I knew y'all were redoing it from like previous from my time there. So you talked about the labor reduction. I don't think you covered this, if you did, I apologize, I missed it. How about your quality, let's just call it improvement potentially, right? So we'll say right now, some of the stuff we feel like human eye can do better, human hand, right, we're on it, but do you feel like your overall quality of sorting, of movement of fruit has went up after adopting the system, because now you have more consistency?
Yeah,
and you can
so
adjust that system over time?
yeah, I'm not going to tell you that our box is perfect.
Right.
Our box is more consistent.
Okay.
So, and Lee knows this, like first thing in the morning, everybody's rip roaring, ready to go, doing a good job.
Then you-
7 o'clock at night, you're still going, everybody gets tired and they're just lollygagging, right? So the quality in the box suffers, but with this system, the consistency all day, day in and day out becomes much better. And you're able to choose what defects you want in the box. Like you can tell a person, hey, I want this in the box, I want that in the box, but at the end of the day, it's a person. You're going to make the wrong
subjective,
decision
right?
sooner or later, right? 7% of the time, a person's making the incorrect decision. What we see with the vision system is that we're 2 to 3% accurate. So it's definitely a benefit to the consistency.
Yeah, awesome. Good. All right, thank you again, Ross.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. And y'all catch him around if you've got more specific questions for him. So we got one more speaker. Like I said, we're a little bit behind, but we're right at technically near our ending time. But please stick around if you don't mind. And let's give our last speaker, and I'm gonna load his presentation right after I introduce him. This is Tanzel Riemann from Auburn University, and he's going to talk about the specialty crop research at Auburn University right now. So let me throw his presentation on here, and we'll get y'all going.
Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about current specialty crop research at Auburn University. So basically, I joined Auburn University in 2022, almost 2.5 years ago. And really, the idea was to develop a smart systems engineering technologies, actually a lab that can integrate different technologies, including artificial intelligence. Obviously, everyone is talking about it. Sensing, robotics, and drones. And develop those technologies, develop new tools, refine existing tools, and apply those things on vegetables, fruits, and ornamentals. So full spectrum of, I would say, specialty crop production, except the nut trees. So with that said, I would like to talk about our very first project that is very early on. I started utilize very state-of-the-art AI, but very basic sensing modalities. You have seen GoPro cameras and all that. Easy to use. You can deploy it pretty much you can collect that data. So started with that in actually controlled environment setting for yield forecasting for the leafy greens. So if we can predict the yield in advance, let's say 4 days or 5 days in advance, that's a big deal for the controlled environment production. They can manage their resources accordingly. They can make commitments accordingly. They don't have to regrow or overgrow actually if they have that data available to the farmers. So really the idea was if we can develop a data pipeline or stream or a system that can utilize off-the-shelf cameras, cheap enough for deployment, and then just apply standard AI practices for the yield prediction. So since this was an early project, started with the hydroponic setting in controlled environment production, utilized kale as a starting plant, and then utilized 2 cameras actually. The very first one is GoPro. I'm pretty sure you might have heard about it. You might have used it at some point. So used that one actually early on, but then keeping in cost mind, we utilized, again, open source Raspberry Pi camera, which is actually combined camera and the computer, $80. So combining these two cameras, put it in the ceiling, just trying to collect some images. There were physical measurements that we did on the plants, and those includes actually the fresh weight and dry weight, obviously, and then we also did some morphological or geometric parameters, with the red line being indicating horizontals and a red line being indicating verticals and a yellow line indicating the horizontal length for the canopies. So with continued imaging for 34 days, it's very common, and then try to utilize AI model. Well, I would not talk too much about what AI model we use, but let's say this is our input image that you just collected with any camera. You can even use your basically webcam or your phone camera, and then combine it with the AI. So AI is actually trying to identify individual plants, and different colors are indicating different plant canopies. And then we further track down the individual corners or edges of individual plant canopy. So once we have boundaries identified for the individual plants, what we did, we found some image parameters, and we predicted some parameters from the images. Those are canopy area, and then horizontal and vertical lengths like we did in physical measurement, and then fresh and dry weights. So these are some correlations that we developed between the physically measured measurements and some of the image parameters. On the top, we had fresh weight and dry weight. This is actually, I would say, a surrogate measure for the yield prediction for the leafy greens. So utilizing our image parameters, we were able to predict with an accuracy of 94.7%, I would say, for the fresh weight, and 92% roughly for the dry weight. The bottom charts are actually representing a lot of information across the different weeks, but those are actually the geometric parameters, the vertical lengths and the horizontal lengths, and some of the area measurements. And the idea is if we can relate area with a fresh weight or dry weight, then we can forecast the yield in advance. The very next step is actually, that's exactly what we did. So we used AI model and basically tried to forecast if we can, looking at today's images, if I can predict what would my yield look like in 2 days from now, or 4 days from now, or 8 days from now. These are different charts representing that on the left and right. You can see some treatments, split root and single root. Those are actually some additional treatments we applied just to see how our AI models can track those changes. Looking at those results, the y-axis is actually area, which is correlated with our fresh weight and dry weight. So if I just look at the area, I can predict the fresh weight and the dry weight based on my previous slide. So I'm tracking area right now in advance, keeping in view that this data provide, I can predict my yield or forecast my yield 4 days in advance using just very simple phone camera, webcam, or any off-the-shelf basic camera. It does not have to be very fancy. The next project is actually on inventory, like the previous two speakers talked about inventory and AI and packaging houses. This one is a little bit off. It's for ornamental productions. Ornamental is a big commodity in the Southeast in general. So current inventory management is counting thousands of plants in really big nurseries where you have thousands and thousands of plants, multiple varieties of the plants. You have azalea, sunshine, hydrangea, you have lower petalum. So all those are actually right now currently being manually counted. So it's a big problem in terms of keeping track of which plant it is, what its quality look like, how long will it be take to be ready to ship to the market. And once the shipping season starts, that's the image on the bottom look like. This one, you start to pick up the better quality plants and start shipping to the Walmart or Home Depot or some other stores. But then you have a poor quality product left on the nursery, and you have poor space utilization. So it adds on. One of the big nurseries in Alabama, Not the biggest one in the Southeast. Explained it spending around $6 million on just keeping track of the inventory and the inventory losses. So it's a big problem. So the idea was if we can come up with any automated solution to rather eliminate completely human, you have a better quality, consistent quality. You send rather than sending people, you can count. You can send your machine and count it. So we came up with this robotic platform, which is from FarmNG, and then we outfitted it with the simple sensors again. We used 2 sensors, which is an additional cost of less than $1,000, and those are all the cameras. There are 2 cameras looking down, which is actually for counting, and there is 1 camera looking ahead, which is for autonomous navigation. So this idea is to make it autonomous, so it can go automatically in the field and count. You can control it from your office, but it would be nice if it can perform scheduled jobs for you. So this is generally the outlook of the robot. On the top, I would say, is the systems we built with the cameras and GPS receivers. The GPS receiver is actually for localizing within the nurseries. So if you have a 1,000-acre, 2,000-acre, or 5,000-acre nursery, you want to see where each bed is and how much plant it has. And an additional layer, which probably we are adding, is the quality of individual plant. So like the speaker talking about the onion said, it's the quality of individual onions. Here it's the quality of the individual plant. That's the additional layer we are adding. So it's available actually right now. The models we have developed are available for 3 commodities. One of them is azalea, sunshine, and hydrangea. Those are top commodities in Alabama. Some of them are probably top commodities in Florida too, in terms of the sale. So again, going back to the models, just try to keep the same images in a similar style. So you have on the top an input azalea image, and then you have a model, basically different colors representing different plants. So you count individual plant, and then you try to find the individual boundaries. So let's take a look at the numbers. So the 3 plots on the bottom are actually representing the accuracy of the system. If you look at the first one, these are ground truth measurements, which is performed by humans. So we have 3 people who went to the same bed, counted 3 different times independently, and came up with the number. On the x-axis of that chart is bed number. On the y-axis is the random sampling location we picked. And these are the numbers from the AI system, which we counted. Anything yellow in color in this plot is representing a miscount. The next plot is actually indicating how many miscounts we have. So it's just a difference between these 2. So if you look at this plot or look at this plot, so we have sometimes an overcount of 1 plant or an undercount of 2 plants. Given that we tested it on actually 500 different azalea beds so far, and our accuracy is most of the time 95% or above. While current accuracy for human counting is between 70% to 80%. So we are already better than that. And with the additional quality parameters, it will be consistent quality to the consumer. And same results are actually for the sunshine here. I just wanted to indicate that we had a little more error rate in the sunshine because of the complicated canopies. But it's still better compared to the manual counting. Our accuracy rate was around 93%. Now, this is actually a video. That's completely fine. So here we go. So this is how it's actually moving in the system. You're taking images. It's autonomous, like I said early on. With the camera, it will show navigation portion in a moment. This is navigation, so it's automatically detecting where the edges are, where the center line is, and trying to follow. And these are the 2, on the top, these are the 2 camera streams coming, and the bottom is like your iPhone, it's creating panorama, and then just applying those AI models on that, and just counting. And this is, I would say, a user interface we have developed. It's a cloud-based service. So you can utilize this service. You can upload your data. You can ask us to collect data for you, and we can bring it back. This is just uploading a simple data. And What it will do is, once you upload the data, it will run all the processes on the cloud, and you will get a data spreadsheet, like an Excel sheet, which can be sent to your phone, or you will get any other formatting that you want. It's a very user-friendly. You can pick different formatting styles. You want charts, you want numbers, raw numbers, you can get all that information. And the robot is automatically plug and play in a sense that it will track to the home position and will automatically upload the data using Wi-Fi protocols, whatever the recent one is or whatever you configured. And then right now, if you see on the top is we are defining quality, but this bed is grade D. It's still a number we are trying to come up with. How does image parameters translate to the physical quality of the plant? Because there are so many diverse plants, it's kind of impossible to keep track of every individual plant and its quality. So that's one automated inventory project on ornamental, but same can go back to the fruits and vegetable production. Another project we tried actually is utilizing hyperspectral camera and try to see if we can utilize that fancy cameras, which are very expensive probably, but can we utilize that for predicting some of the plant health status, and combine it with AI applications to predict water status, health, or other quality parameters. Really the idea is, if it's successful, which it is, can we lower down the cost or can we develop a custom camera? Like the previous presenter said, fine-tuning the right wavelengths or fine-tuning the right region in the NIR. So this is one of those ideas, finding the sweet spot that we can utilize for water status prediction. I would not go too much in details. It's very similar to try to follow the same pipeline that we developed early on, trying to identify the individual plant. And these are some of the prediction results. The leaf water content is on the left, which is water status of individual leaf, but this is on a canopy level. And the same goes for the photosynthesis activity. If you see, the R square is pretty high, 0.9. Or the prediction accuracy, I would say, is pretty high, 0.95. Well, this study was in controlled environment in a sense that it was in a high tunnel just to apply different levels of water to avoid rainfall interference. But we are doing the same study in the field this year, utilizing these models and be able to translate it into the field. Potential applications, I would say, is irrigation scheduling, finding supporting blueberry breeding program for the drought and the frost damage or freeze damage. I think that's pretty much all. These are all funding agencies that support this work. Any questions?
All right. Thank you. You have any questions for Tanzil?
Yes. No, so intelligence, we are not using intelligence. It's actually a custom camera set. And we tried autonomy that comes with Amiga, but it did not work for our application because the product line is so diverse in ornamental production. The space margin is sometimes 10 to 12 centimeters, and the Amiga itself, the width for the tire and Amiga tire is around 8 centimeters. So we have very little margin, so we had 3 sensors on board actually. No, it's actually GPS and vision guided and sonar fusion guided. So there are 3 sensors going in actually. Yeah, perfect.
Any more questions? All right, if not, I want to thank everybody that stuck around to the end. Appreciate it. I think lunch is, I think it opened at 11 over there. I may be wrong, but I think that it did. So, again, thank y'all for coming. If you're still here and you haven't filled out a survey, please do so. And you saw your speakers, so if you see any of them around and have questions for them, catch them and enjoy the rest of the show. Again, trade show closes at 2:30, and that'll kind of officially wrap everything up. So, thank you, guys.